Welcome everybody to Spring 2022 Dynamics Con Conference. SPS is proud to be a 6-time sponsor of Dynamics Con. We might not be live in person, but we are definitely live in chat. So if you have questions during the presentations, please feel free to put those questions in chat and we will do our best to answer you. By way of introduction, I am Judy Weston. I work with our Microsoft partners and customers in the Dynamics space. And along with me, I have Brian Lynch, who is Senior Product Specialist on the Microsoft Market team. Brian comes to us with over 25 years of EDI experience. He's actually started in EDI when he was a toddler. So welcome, Brian. And along with me as well, a special guest, Kimber Young, who is a sales leader working with our buying organizations to help automate their procure-to-pay process. So welcome, Kimber. So let's talk a little bit about what we're going to be going through today. And I just went through the introductions. Kimber's going to be walking through our procure-to-pay challenges. We're going to talk about the SPS Commerce full service EDI solution, as well as a demonstration. Brian is going to be walking through what the product looks like. And then, as I mentioned before, any questions, please put them in the chat and we'll get back to you. So just a little bit about our footprint within the Microsoft Dynamics space. In case you missed it, news back in December of 2020, SPS Commerce and Data Masons merged a 10-year-long partnership, and Data Masons became part of the SPS Commerce family. We are now known as the Microsoft Market team. And time flies. Back in December of 2020, when we acquired Data Masons, we brought over 140 of their employees, and we are now 200 strong, have over 1,800 customers and 25 years of experience working with, anywhere from NAV to Business Central, AX to D365 finance and operations. And this is kind of a picture of our global footprint here at SPS Commerce. We've been building in the last 2 decades the largest retail network. And let me tell you a little bit about how we did that. So let's rewind to 20 years ago. I know that I would like to rewind to 20 years ago. But the first time we looked at connecting to Walmart for one of our customers, what we did was we figured out, how does Walmart want to connect? And got their specifications, built out the maps to each one of those document types, and then we never built those out again. So for the second and third and 2000th customer that does business with Walmart, we reuse those maps, those pre-mapped connections. So fast forward 20 years, we've got over 3,000 buying organizations that are in our network. So anywhere from, think of the Grangers of the world and the Cabela's, and anywhere from marketplaces to distributors, we're over 3,000 strong that are already pre-mapped. As well as we have a network of third-party logistics companies that we work with, and we've amassed over 1,000 of those as well. So a lot of times when our customers are looking to move to a 3PL, they'll ask us for recommendations of customers or of 3PLs that can work with SPS Commerce. So this is really kind of the meat and potatoes of what SPS Commerce does. One connection to the SPS Commerce network. And a lot of our customers are used to us talking about how they get their orders from the Amazons and the eBays and the Wayfairs of the world. And we're able to automate those processes within Dynamics, as well as with their third-party logistics providers that we talked about. But today, we're here to talk about how to automate your procure-to-pay process. And a lot of our customers think of themselves as suppliers and not necessarily buying organizations. Now, if you're sending orders via email to any of your suppliers or any materials that you might need to buy, you are actually acting as a buying organization. And we've invited Kimber Young here to talk about how to automate that procure-to-pay process. So Kimber, take it away.
Awesome. Thank you, Judy, and hello, hello to everybody tuning in. Thanks so much for joining us today. So let's dive in and just start with why companies initially come to SPS in the first place. It's usually in one of these three categories. You see a compliance ask of one of their key partners, a strategic initiative based around their growth and the need to be more efficient, or a system change that triggers adding in other solutions to help maximize that shift, such as moving to or upgrading Dynamics, which some of you may be going through or recently gone through. And so that's why companies come to us. And on the surface, many of these initial outreaches to SPS are technology-based. This is a technology project, an add-on to my Microsoft system. But ultimately, what we're going to talk about today is really essential for and impact the entire business. So now let's walk through some of the challenges that buying orgs face and how SPS solves for them. Now, whether you have 3 suppliers, 300 suppliers, maybe thousands or anything in between, managing this ecosystem you see here with your suppliers is hard. I'm sure if you're as a part of a buying organization tuning in, you know that firsthand. You've got your set of systems and processes. Your suppliers have their own completely separate set of these things. And the fact that 50% of your supply chain is outside of your control ultimately leads to potential failure points every step of the way through this order replenishment process. And that really starts with getting product information, getting timely, detailed, accurate product information so that you know what you can even order and that you're ordering the correct item from the start. So from there, the buying organization submits that purchase order out to the supplier. The next failure point is the buying org getting not just confidence that the supplier received that purchase order, but can they ship complete? Can they ship on time? Are they getting that information quickly in a way that they can then pivot and figure out what they need to do? At that point, then it comes time for the supplier to fulfill that order. And oftentimes the buying organization is left a little bit in the dark as to what's arriving at what place, at what time, how is it picked and packed. In a direct-to-consumer model, you need tracking information to provide to your end consumer. So it can be really challenging for the buying org. Ultimately, then, when they receive something, say, to a warehouse or a DC, it's kind of a surprise unpacking that box or pallet. What did we get? Is it actually what we ordered? Getting it put away can be challenging. Ultimately, then, dragging out that time to get the product to the end consumer or to a storefront. So this stuff is hard, but that's not to say that buying organizations aren't actively trying to find solutions. Everyone that we talk to has one or sometimes several initiatives underway to try to alleviate these challenges we just talked about. Things like buying new technology, like adding a WMS, or ordering excess inventory to make sure there's never an out of stock, or changing a process internally. The most common one we see is ultimately adding staff, which can be extremely costly in order to do so. And today's hiring market is pretty difficult as well. So these are really good steps, obviously, but ultimately that's only solving still half of the problem since 50% of the supply chain is outside of their control. Now, if you're feeling some of this today, know that you're not alone. Over 90% of buying organizations have admitted that they're not getting access to this mission critical visibility and information that they need. And ultimately, that's resulting in some pretty significant business problems. And through our experience, SPS has really bucketed these challenges into 5 key categories. So the first one, reactive order management, like we walked through in that failure point slide. A buying org sending a purchase order with little to no visibility, and then being extremely reactive when it turns out that that supplier has to short ship or late ship something, which causes a whole other bunch of problems. Secondly, for buying orgs that actually have some type of inventory that they need to manage, it can be very costly. Many of them are actually ordering excess inventory and safety stock because they never want to face an out of stock and lose sales. So they're tying a lot of money up in over purchasing. This third one here, inaccurate invoicing, one of the most common ones I hear in speaking with buying orgs regularly. It's so hard for our friends in accounts payable to receive an invoice and have confidence that it's accurate. Was that actual product fulfilled by the supplier? Should I just pay it and cross my fingers that I'm not overpaying? Or do I go to the work to then go track down and figure out what did we actually receive to reconcile that invoice before I confidently pay it? The fourth one here is another pretty common one. We all know customers are the lifeblood of our business. And today's customers can be pretty fickle. They have a lot of different avenues that they can go get product from. And so a poor customer experience can really hurt sales and cause the loss of customers. And then lastly, without this audit trail of all of this information, it's really difficult for buying organizations to partner with their key suppliers and help manage, when a supplier is consistently short shipping or late shipping or dropping the ball without this data to back up their conversation. So you may be feeling some or a few of these things today, but really as we've dug deeper into this, the impact runs a lot deeper than many realize. It's not just tying up money in inventory. It's not just adding additional headcount. That means unused open to buy budget. That means potentially missed sales. A lot of times we see companies trying to pivot to maybe more of an e-commerce or dropship model. It's really hard to do with thin margins when all these things are so costly. And ultimately, we see the cost up in the millions of dollars every year, which only compounds as companies continue to grow. So this stuff is hard. You know it, you're living it firsthand. There is good news here. SPS has a solution, and that's what we're here to talk about. So really at our core, what SPS does is to enable the exchange of data, this mission critical data across product, ordering, and sell through. And ultimately, we're going to deliver this solution in a full service model that is not just technology, but also the people and the process behind that to drive the ultimate value for our customers. So looking at that a little bit deeper, there's a lot going on here. These are the really key components to making a project like this work, to automate your procure to pay and onboard your suppliers. Technology, of course, is absolutely crucial, and we'll have Brian highlight our technology piece of this specific to Dynamics shortly. But beyond that, there's some really key components that are needed. You need the expertise and the strategy from your delivery team to make sure you've got the right solution for your business needs. You need a team of people to help onboard those suppliers. Whether it's 3, or whether it's in the tens or hundreds or thousands, that can be a pretty heavy burden. Of course, you need flexible solutions, both for yourself and for your suppliers, all the way then on through to that launch and ongoing success management for you. A solution with SPS is going to provide you the team and the expertise across all of these. And what we found in our 20 plus years in the market is that most solutions actually only meet a part of the need. They may have a very pretty shiny technology solution, but then when push comes to shove, you're stuck doing a lot of the heavy lifting around the strategy, the expertise, the delivery, and the supplier onboarding. Now, in order to get the results that we've been talking about, there's 4 key steps to the foundation. First, we're going to work with you to identify where do we even start and what's going to have the highest impact for your unique organization. Next, we're going to identify the right target audience within those supplier relationships that you have. And we're going to dig in and take a data-driven approach to really work smart with the group of suppliers we're going to choose to engage with on your behalf. Ultimately, we're going to drive towards automating as close to 98% of those outbound orders as possible. And this is key here because we all know this doesn't necessarily mean that going out and strong arming 100% of your vendors into doing what you want them to do is realistic or worth the effort. So know that we'll be really smart and guide you all along the way around who makes sense to target based on your relationships with them. Now, third is that SPS is going to help by individually consulting with and educating each of your suppliers on your behalf as an extension of you to really shepherd them through this process to gain their commitment to make this change and ultimately drive value for both you and them. And then finally, we'll partner with you to make sure that the internal changes happening within your organization go forward now that you're going to have access to a lot of information you may not have had access to before. So I've hit on this a couple of times now. We're talking about people, process, and technology. So let's talk about the people. You're going to have a team at SPS for implementation and delivery all the way through to ongoing success management. So that's going to start with a project team, including a project manager. They're going to align with you, both your technical and business resources, to understand your needs, your instance of Dynamics, and really get your system connected into the SPS network. In parallel to that, you're going to have a program manager. Think of this person as a liaison between your organization and the folks at SPS reaching out to your suppliers to make sure that we're really representing your company and your brand, acting as an extension of you through that supplier outreach and onboarding. And then, of course, you're going to have a team of people doing that actual consultation with your suppliers on your behalf as a part of this. Now, paired with this, we understand these are your partners in your relationships. You need to know what's happening every step of the way. And so you'll have real-time access via a platform to understand for each of your suppliers that we're reaching out to, where they're at in the process, if there are questions or concerns, so that you've got the right level of visibility and input throughout the process, but your team isn't burdened with all of the questions and conversations that take place with each of the suppliers. So that's the people. Let's talk about process. SPS has been doing this for 20 plus years. And so we have a proven best-in-class process that we've executed on hundreds of times to help guide our customers through this. And this is going to utilize a suite of existing engagement tools to help get suppliers onboarded that include white labeled webinars, websites, email communications that are all branded for you, but ultimately we've perfected over time to make sure that there's really clear communication to your suppliers so that we can drive them towards adoption. Now, a really common question that comes up, I hear it almost every time is, well, what if my suppliers don't do EDI? What if they don't even know how to spell EDI? That is completely okay. You can, when partnering with SPS, you can feel good knowing that whether your supplier does EDI today outside of SPS, or maybe they're currently with SPS leveraging one of our solutions, or they don't even know how to spell EDI, we've got onboarding options that are very flexible for them and ultimately give them a choice in what's going to work best on their end. So we'll really shepherd them through that process and make sure they feel like they've got some control and a choice in that decision. So pulling this all together, we talked at the beginning, all the different failure points that can happen when you're interacting with your suppliers. And so in an ideal future state, working directly out of your Dynamics system, the goal would be that you can issue that purchase order out of your system in an automated fashion. Your supplier receives it, and then in a timely manner, they can confirm back to you, not just that they received it, but whether or not they can ship in full on time. And based on their timely response to you, you're then a lot more proactive. You can potentially issue a purchase order change to them to start that audit trail of the process, in which case then they'll work to fulfill that order. So when they ship it, then you've already got a heads up to know, here's what's coming, here's how it's picked and packed. Here's when I can expect to receive it, so my team is ready, even down to the point of them providing a scannable label, if it makes sense, for your DC or warehouse to be able to quickly scan that carton or pallet and know exactly what's in it to get it put away that much faster. And then lastly, when it comes time to invoice, your accounts payable friends can get that invoice and feel really good with that three-way match process and feeling confident that they can pay off of the invoice and that it's accurate. So with that, let's make this real for you. I am going to pass it to our Microsoft wizard, Brian, to walk you through a demo within a Dynamics environment.
What we're going to do is jump into Dynamics itself. And like said earlier, definitely appreciate everyone's time here today as we kind of walk through the technology portion of the offering. And with the SPS EDI integration, here we've got a purchase order that we have created inside of Dynamics Finance and Supply Chain. Now, whether that purchase order was manually created, was created based off of sales demand or our automated replenishment rules, what we're looking for is just the mere fact that we have a PO that is able to be sent out electronically to our supplier. Now, how does SPS know that this particular purchase order is EDI enabled? And so I'll actually drill back into the vendor AP setup, and these are standard Dynamics windows, but I will call your attention to the fact that SPS via our Microsoft certified integration has added EDI buttons and tabs right within the Dynamics experience. And so in this case, I can denote for this supplier that yes, they are EDI enabled, what business documents that we want to trade with them. As Kimber indicated, very common to do things like purchase orders, purchase order acknowledgements, advance ship notices, and invoices. But where need be, I can also cross-reference my part number values, service allowance charges, ship to address information, maybe our retail stores, our distribution centers, etc. Now, armed with this information, I can actually issue the PO electronically. And with the SPS, that can be set up on a schedule that you define. So I might want that to go out every minute. I might want that to go out X number of times a day, all completely personalized to your situation. Now, as that supplier receives our purchase order, again, very common to receive back, for instance, a purchase order confirmation. And here, SPS has actually created our purchase order confirmation journals, whereby we may be doing things like updating the quantities that they have available. If there's any date information that needs to be updated, these are very common things that we are set up to pull back. Now, depending on how you go through receiving process, some of our customers use the Dynamics Advanced Warehouse functionality, which we're fully integrated with. And again, if you are pulling back the advanced ship notice information, especially those labels that Kimber indicated, where I may be doing scan-based receiving, we can use that information to ultimately create our receipts. If for some reason you do not have the advanced warehouse module, or again, a third-party warehouse, again, we do have some customers that ask us to create the product receipt, back inside of Dynamics, which we can do. Now, as we start to receive the product, we talked earlier about the invoicing, because again, we ultimately need to pay for that merchandise. We want to take advantage of any discounts that our supplier has offered to us, and being able to electronically receive and ultimately process the invoice is going to be very critical for that functionality. And so what I'm going to do is actually go over to the Dynamics pending invoice journal functionality, and specifically we'll drive into the invoice that we received electronically. Now, as you may be aware, Dynamics 365 has a detailed matching rules that you can go through around pricing and quantities and discounts and other areas that EDI can actually leverage that functionality. Now, in an automated fashion, if all of the matching rules are accepted, then the EDI can actually automatically post that transaction so that we can get it paid. Again, oftentimes being able to take advantage of those discounts that our suppliers has enabled. If for any reason that the invoice did not match, again, maybe the three-way matching and other rules that we've applied, now that AP clerk is simply managing off of the exceptions. Now, throughout that whole process, again, taking your attention to the menu bar and specifically EDI, one of the things that we enable is what we call Transaction Lifecycle Explorer. And really what this functionality allows me to do is to see in one spot right off of Dynamics that, again, we issued out that outbound purchase order, we received in the inbound purchase order acknowledgement, we received in our shipment notification, and then again, lastly, we sent in our invoice. If there were multiple shipments, multiple invoices, we would see all of that information together. If I wanted to see the raw message or a human readable equivalent of what was processed, again, all visible right within the system. Now, this is also set up with role-based security, so we can indicate, with our operators what each person is allowed to see, etc. Now, I also wanted to showcase here a little bit some of our extended reporting that we are adding on top of some of the Dynamics capabilities. And so here, what we call order visibility allows us to do inquiries based off of date ranges, based off of PO type, based off of location and department. Within this information, we also have key performance indicators, orders that are late, orders that are only partially shipped, orders that are missing acknowledgments. Again, being able to take actionable exception management-based processing steps. Now, within that, things like our order acknowledgments, again, we can go down by the individual line items, that they're rejected maybe by our supplier, or they've acknowledged it, but maybe there's changes. Because again, this may be that, do we need to adjust our quantity ordered and again, issue a PO change? Do we maybe need to source this material from other locations? Unfortunately, with COVID and supply chain disruptions, that exchange of data in an accurate and timely fashion is really key to ensuring that we're meeting our customer obligations. Now, here we can also see our individual suppliers, our individual orders, and our types that we can drill down into. And what we call order performance allows us to actually start to do vendor scorecarding. We can see things like, percentages filled, quantity details. We can use this information as we get into maybe comparing different suppliers. Again, all under the notion of using this actionable intelligence to make informed decisions and using that electronic trading details, again, to enable us. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to my friend Judy here, just with some closing thoughts.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Brian. And on behalf of Brian, Kimber, and myself, we'd like to thank you for your time, Dynamics Con audience. If any of this sparked any questions for you and you'd like to learn more about how to automate your procure to pay process, or if you'd like to automate your processes, your orders from customers, or send orders to a 3PL, we'd love to engage with you. So enjoy the rest of the conference, and thank you so much.